This is Land of Havilah, Psalm 57, verse 1. For the chief musician, to the tune of Do Not Destroy, a poem by David when he fled from Saul in the cave. Comment: when David was a fugitive from Saul, he stayed wherever he could, including in the cave of Adullam and a cave in the En-Gedi wilderness, 1 Samuel 22 and 1 Samuel 24. Both caves were within easy reach of Saul and his army. The point's that it was a time of severe distress. He was desperate for God to help him, still in verse 1. Be merciful to me, God, be merciful to me, for my soul takes refuge in you. Yes, in the shadow of your wings I'll take refuge until disaster has passed. I cry out to God Most High, to God who accomplishes my request for me. He'll send from heaven and save me. He rebukes the one who's pursuing me. Selah. God will send out his loving kindness and his truth. My soul is among lions. I lie among those who are set on fire, even the sons of men whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue a sharp sword. Be exalted, God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above all the earth. They've prepared a net for my steps. My soul is bowed down. They dig a pit before me. They fall into the middle of it themselves. Selah. My heart is steadfast, God. My heart is steadfast. I'll sing, yes, I'll sing praises. Wake up, my glory, wake up, lute and harp. I'll wake up the dawn. I'll give thanks to you, Lord, among the peoples. I'll sing praises to you among the nations. For your great loving kindness reaches to the heavens, and your truth to the skies. Be exalted, God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. Comment: in verse 1, David says he'll take refuge in the shadow of God's wings until disaster has passed. Some types of birds spread their wings to protect their chicks from the elements and from predators. It's a place of security for the chicks. We can't hide under the covers, that won't work, but we can take refuge under God's wings until disaster has passed, in verse 1. Speaking of disaster passing, skipping down to verses 8 and 9, David says, Wake up, my glory, wake up, lute and harp. I'll wake up the dawn. I'll give thanks to you, Lord, among the peoples. I'll sing praises to you among the nations. End quote. By faith, he's envisioning a time when disaster has passed. His spirits will soar. He'll feel on top of the world. And he'll do it all out in the open, not in a cave as he is now. His faith wasn't misplaced. God eventually did all that for him. In verse 2, quote, God accomplishes all my requests for me, end quote. There's a saying, be careful what you ask for because you might get it. But God doesn't work that way. We don't have to worry about what we ask, because if we ask for something we think is good and helpful, he won't give us anything harmful, Luke 11:11-13. So we can ask away without fear of harming ourselves, placing our faith in God, that he'll hold back the request if it's not good. So when David says, God accomplishes all my requests for me, yes, he does, but not if they're going to have a negative effect. A good parent doesn't give his children everything they want, and neither does our good God. In verse 4, my soul is among the lions. I live among those who are set on fire, meaning there are people out there burning to do him harm. They'll fall into their own traps, in verse 6. In verse 7, my heart is steadfast, God. My heart is steadfast, end quote, meaning his trust in God is steadfast. It's important to take a stance with our mouths, trusting God to establish it. Maybe David didn't feel 100% steadfast, but he knew he had every reason to be steadfast, God being our helper that he is, so he declared it with his mouth, or with his pen in this case. Some have called it a positive confession. It's just a matter of taking up faith and following through on that faith with our mouths, then trusting in God to take it from there. There's something about putting it in the mouth that accomplishes something. God established the universe by words. We establish business contracts by words. We establish marriages by words. God commands us to establish our salvation by words. He said, confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord and believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, and you'll be saved. Proverbs says the power of death and life are in the tongue. Words are important in establishing and changing things and altering the current reality. So whenever we know something to be good and right, let's just come out and say it, declare it, take a verbal stance on it. And since it is good and right, the power of God will be behind it. It's good and right to be confident in God always, so let's say we're confident in him, because God will back us up on every good and right thing. and we need to take a stance for the good and right. David knew he should be steadfast, so he said, I'm steadfast. And he'll keep saying it. If his mind isn't 100% on board with that, he can catch up with it in his mind later. Psalm 58 is next.